you're soon going to be going on a retreat with your MDiv program at Naropa University. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So what's the retreat going to look like?
I have no clue,
Okay.
There's not much details that were provided. It's just all I know is that I'm gonna show up. One of my classmates is gonna be picking me up at the airport and dropping me back off. Wonderful gentleman. Very, very happy to have been connected with him. Otherwise, I would have had to rent a car for 9 days and paid for the 9 days and only use it for two.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it going to be in a remote area or is it going to be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So, Naropa University, I'm not sure if you're familiar, it's in Boulder, but their retreat center is in a very remote area, closer to like the Fort Collins airport, which is also a really small airport.
Gotcha, gotcha.
I have actually never been there, so I am just in for a treat, I think.
Yeah, I'd say it was. So you've never been to Colorado or you've never been?
To Naropa, the campus.
Oh
I've been
yeah.
to Colorado, I've been to Estes Park and Colorado Springs before, but I haven't been to Boulder yet. So
Nice. Oh, cool. Well, I'm really excited for you. I've never visited the Naropa campus, though I've seen the website, so I've seen some pictures of it, but I've been to the Boulder bookstore, which I think is where they have it in Boulder, and which is where I think the Naropa bookstore is. Like within the bookstore, there's a kind of like
yeah.
a school bookstore. And that's how I found out. I like picked up a Naropa mug. I was like, "Oh, what is this? What is this school?" And so that's kind of what sent me into kind of exploring more of it and knowing about it in the first place. And I'm really excited that you're going to be doing a program. You're going to be doing a Masters of Divinity there. What do you know what you'll be focusing on the most?
Well, my hope is to go into more of um just learning more about pastoral care in general and specifically more in the hospitals. They have a CPE component where you get certified for being for chaplaincy and being able to work in hospitals and prisons and things like that,
Yeah.
school counseling, things like that. So,
And is there like a Shingon like framework that they can help you guide you through, or is it mostly just this is pastoral care, it doesn't
not
matter where you're
really
coming from?
exactly.
Yeah, got it, got it.
Yeah. And it's more of I mean, it's a Tibetan Buddhist inspired university. Um, so most of the teachers there are of a Tibetan background, but it's their sister traditions and Buddhism is Buddhism. So,
Yeah, dope. And then like so you'd want to pursue uh some there's like certification and some more facility in pastoral care. Is there a place where like you'd want to work in prisons or hospitals, or is there a place where you'd want to use that the most?
Hopefully in prisons or I mean, no, sorry. Well, yeah, actually I could do that. I think I would probably focus on like juvenile hall type of a situation. I would want to work with more youth,
Mhm.
uh, just to try to get them early,
Yeah,
hired early. But also in hospitals, I really liked what really inspired me. I'll just tell you the story.
please.
It's kind of what got me into the university, I think, because you had to write a paper and then do an interview. Um, so let's see. So when I started my Shingon journey, like 12 years ago, I don't know how many, 12, 13, 14, I don't know, a while ago, I met some interesting people at my temple. We were getting ready for the 100th anniversary. I think I joined like maybe the year before the 100th anniversary. So one of the people that was on the committee that was, our graphics designer, he made our book, and our program and whatnot. He designed all the graphics, laid it out with his daughter. I became really close with him and his family because they would come every Sunday. We would attend morning service together. And then they had like a Japanese class that I would try to help out with, and then Japanese Buddhist study or Shingon Buddhism study class at that time. And after 100th anniversary ended, we still kept in touch. We still continued to go to classes, and his health just turned for the worst. One day I got a phone call saying that he ended up in the hospital. So um I drove down to the temple. I said, well, do you guys want to go? I talked to a couple of the other staff and volunteers there, and we all met up after work and we drove down to go see him. Um, and just being with the family, that was what I wanted to do, and just provide whatever support I could, just listen to them, provide him comfort, talk to him when he was lucid and awake, um, and give him encouragement. So we did that. Um, and it was at that moment that I realized how important it is for people to be around the dying, and to understand that whole process, because it's something that we're so removed from. And that's, to me, it just is not natural. Because in other countries where they have, in Asia, where they have someone that dies, they keep them in the family, or in the family home, they pass away at home. Um, and sometimes they keep the body there for a few days before they're buried or cremated or whatever. Um, a few years before that, my grandfather had passed away, and I think I got to see him on his birthday, and I think maybe a week or 2 weeks after that, he had passed away. And my mom and my aunt were going to the hospital visiting him because they were primary caretaker for my grandma and grandpa at the time. We live in LA. My grandparents were in Orange County, so my mom would be there maybe 3, 4 days out of the week, and my aunt would rotate with her. And then when her other sisters were in town, they would take over that duty. One was in Hawaii, one was in Arizona. So um, it was really hard on the family just because it was a lot of time, but I think they were really thankful that they got that opportunity to spend their last moments with my grandpa. And I remember when he passed away, it was just so sudden for me, and I was like, oh, I wish I made another visit. And um but I got to say what I wanted to say to him. I got to see him on his birthday. um and that was really great. I'm so sorry if you hear my dog snoring. He's okay, good.
No, no, no. I can only hear you, but yeah, that's yeah.
Perfect. I have a senior pug that I adopted last year, so
Yeah, is that George, right? Is that
yeah,
yeah?
George.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, he likes to sleep right next to me and snore away. So, but yeah, not being there for my grandpa in his last moments, that was really hard for me. And I actually had a kind of fight with my mom the night before about certain things. Well, not a fight. It was more of, I was upset because I always felt like I wasn't getting enough information about what his condition was and things like that. And I understand she was in it, she was there all the time. So she was hearing the information firsthand or secondhand from her sister or the doctors or the nurses. And, she was just tired. And I can't blame her, but I know how upset I was and how upset she may have been or must have been or frustrated. Um, and it took me a while to like get over that. I ended up writing her a letter about it, and because it's not something I felt comfortable talking about. But she, I went on a trip. I sent her the letter. She goes, "Why didn't you just talk to me about this?" I was like, "Mom, I didn't feel comfortable talking about this." She's like, "I didn't feel any of that stuff that you thought I felt. We're fine. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, you were there, you helped out with the funeral arrangements. So I just remember the next day or that night when he passed away, my mom left me a voice message. I had my phone off because I was like, I gotta go to work tomorrow. It's late. I'm done. I was just exhausted from our conversation. And um I listened to it in the morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I guess I better not go to work today. So I called my boss. I was like, I'm sorry, I have to miss work. I gotta go to the mortuary to see, help my family with arrangements for my grandpa. She's like, don't worry about it. Just do what you gotta do. Um, and it was like things just fell in place for his arrangements. Like my family was in. It took a while to get the what is it, the death certificate. That's such a nightmare. That took a while, but my family flew in from Hawaii, flew in from Arizona, no, no, no. My aunt had lost her passport in Arizona. No, not Arizona, sorry, in Mexico. She was traveling in Mexico, but somehow things just worked out and she was able to get a replacement within like a day or two, something remarkable. And she was on the next flight back to LA. She didn't even go home. She just came straight to LA to be with the family. And like we worked it out, it was amazing. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I mean, all that said, I really appreciate your your intention of being someone that can be there for people, not just like in the room for those that are maybe terminally ill, and need that comfort when they can appreciate it, when they're lucid, or when they or just in general, just being there in person. And then also too, I mean, you sharing that story about all the efforts and the coordination and the emotions that are going on with among the family members even before someone passes
yeah,
away. It's like
yeah,
it's heavy stuff. It's really busy, and it's busy about something that's so serious. And it's like, well, why? How can you get so bureaucratic about something that's so, it's like, just
exactly.
it's life and death. And so for you to be there in the room with family members that are grieving, and you already have that in you to want to be in the hospital room with the family to be there as support, not just for the person that's passing, but also for the people that are losing someone. So that's really amazing. And I'm sorry that you've had so much relatively recent loss in your life. I know that's not easy, and it sounds like when your grandfather was passing, that it was a very intense time for your mother, your family, but also for you. And I'm just glad that you're gonna do something about this intention and trying to be there for other people.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing it.
So, truth be told, I am a government worker and I don't have no plans to leave my my 7 to 4:30 job
Okay.
and my pension behind.
Right, 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 right.
But this is what my intention is, to do either volunteering, if I have the capacity to do that on the weekends, if it doesn't do, you know, if it doesn't take away from my temple duties, and also just a retirement plan of something to do.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. But also too, I mean, like, just as a person in the world, right? I feel like some of those skills come in handy. You have a
Oh
friend
yeah,
that loses somebody, or you have
yeah.
like a sangha member that is, people are losing each other. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing. And and so when did this kind of like coalesce for you, like to want to apply for Naropa? Was it kind of after years of uh participating in a Shingon community that you're like, well, you know what, I kind of like, I want to step up my involvement in the world, and I want to bring what I'm learning or what I'm experiencing here to others. Like, when did that start to happen for you?
So honestly, I think it happened. There was just a progression of incidents that had been happening. I had an uncle pass away, and I was doing the same thing just in my first grad school program. And I just started a new job, or the current job that or the current workplace that I'm at right now. Um, it's just been a crazy thing. My mom went to the hospital for a heart aneurysm, like maybe a couple months into into being at work, and I was still on probation. And my boss, or the manager at the time, she goes, "Why are you here? Your mother's in the hospital." And I looked at her. I was like, "There's nothing I can do right now for my mother, and if I'm at the hospital, I think I'm just gonna wallow in, whatever emotions, and it's not productive. So I need to be here and working and doing something productive." My father is with my family right now, and they're taking care of him. And we've got friends that work at the hospital. They're taking care of him. So I think me being there may add addition. I don't want them to have to feel like they have to take care of me, and I'm fine right now. Um, but thank you so much. And she's like, "Well, if you need any of the time, just take it." And then after that happened, I think a couple years later, or a year later, because I was still in my grad program, my uncle ended up going to the hospital, and his whole situation was horrible. I won't even go into detail, but his daughter lives out of state, and he ended up falling at home, and my aunt was like, Bob, you got to get up. He didn't get up for the day. She goes, if you don't get up by the end of the day, I'm calling an ambulance or taking you to the hospital. And he ended up going to the hospital. He seemed fine, um, but he had 2 heart attacks in the hospital, and things just turned for the worse. And I didn't find out till much later. I think I had a fall. It's really bad. I was running along the marina near my house, and I had a fall, and I was like, oh, well, I better just get my leg checked out because I probably have a twisted ankle or something. And I've always been the one that doesn't go to see the doctor until like it gets really, really bad. And I have health insurance. I'm paying for it, or my work is paying for it. I have a good job. I can afford this. Let's just go. So I went, and my cousin is in the parking lot as I'm leaving. He goes, "Oh, Brandon, did you just come to see Dad?" I was like, "No, what do you mean?" And he's like, "My father's, he's upstairs." It's like, okay, I will visit him after I go to the pharmacy and get my meds and whatnot. Don't worry. Like, so I saw, and I saw his condition it was bad because he was not conscious. So his daughter came, and then um my dad's, or I guess my dad's cousin's daughter from Atlanta also flew in with her aunt. And so it was a good gathering of family. I mean, it's always the worst time, but or it's not the best condition, or to be a reason to gather, but it was nice to see everyone and just to be there for each other. And I think us coming together and uh, just being there for each other through that time was really something that opened my eyes, because one of them had mentioned to me, hey, why don't you, like, you're really good at this, like you brought so much comfort to us, can you lead us in a meditation? And so we went to the chapel area, and I just had them take a few breaths. We had a little meditation session that calmed them down a bit, because they had just received notice that my uncle's, he's basically brain dead, and everyone was just having a bunch of emotions, and so we needed to all calm down and take a breath,
Yeah.
pause. So um one of them had said, you're really good at this, I think you should look into this. And that's kind of what sparked it, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And this year last year no sorry last year I finished the Gonkyoshi training in Japan with Johnny, and a couple of other people. And as soon as we got our certificates, I was like, okay, what's next, right? um there's a lot more training that we can do, but I felt I always used to think we don't have a strong pastoral care type of thing, or even hospice care. We do have a program where we visit like the old folks home and things like that, in the Japanese community, and a lot of the ministers in LA um, work together in a rotating schedule for each of the Japanese temples that visit all the Japanese retirement homes. But we don't have like a regular visit for hospitals. And I thought, that'd be really nice if we could kind of establish that. And so that's kind of why I went into this program. Is after that training, I was like, well, what else is lacking? And I was thinking um, at Nishi Honganji, because my family's longtime members of the Nishi tradition, or the Honpa Honganji Jodo Shinshu tradition. Um, I always felt that they give like some of the best sermons, and they just know how to expound on the Dharma and say it in a very easy to understand and relatable way. And we've had a few ministers that are really good at it at our temple, but in general, they're not trained to do that in an American context, because they're all from Japan. Most of them have been from Japan, and it's hard to connect because of the cultural differences. But I thought, oh, I could work on that, because now I should be stepping up to do more Dharma talks. Uh, since sometimes I have to lead our Daishiko service when the head minister is not able to come. And I've just had to do Dharma talks on the fly, and it's like, oh, this is so stressful. But got a few, I've got a few in my pocket that I can pull out at any time. So
Nice. Wow.
yeah,
Wait, so your family, part of your family's religious tradition or cultural heritage is within the Jodo Shinshu tradition. Is that right? Like the
yeah. So my mother is not religious, but like she would attend like for funerals, big services and Obon. We used to go when I was younger. Just a few times when I was younger, and she enjoyed that in Hawaii. My mom grew up in Hawaii and moved to LA when she was in like 17, her last year of high school. Uh,
Mm-mm.
so she grew up around that, and she wanted me to experience that. I just remember being really young, going to these services and not understanding anything. Her telling me how to offer incense and whatnot. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing, And seeing like all the wall panels, it's decorated with the Buddha's life and everything. So at the Betsuin in Los Angeles. So that was always interesting to me, but I didn't really know much about it. And she taught me how to chant Namwami Dabutsu and the Nembutsu and that. I tried to learn the no, not Shoshinge. The Jusei, because Shoshinge is much longer. When I was in high school, I went to Catholic school for high school because my dad was really wanting me to understand Christianity and Catholicism, in whatever flavor context, just so I could navigate the world and understand and relate to people because I didn't grow up Christian or with any type of Sunday school and whatnot. So he's like, well, I want you to go to a parochial school just so you understand where people are coming from. I said, okay, that's fine. When I went to school, I went to LaSalle High School in Pasadena, and it was a wonderful school. We had a world religions class, and I think that was in my junior year. And I just remember that was when we were learning about Buddhism. And I was like, you know what? I really need to get more in touch with my roots because obviously I'm not Catholic. Like I thought about converting and I was like, there's a lot of good in that religion and there's a lot that spoke to me, but not everything spoke to me. And it was just too rigid for me, I guess. I liked the ritual. I liked attending mass. I liked that they had all these feasts and celebrations. I thought that was wonderful. And how people just came together. I still attend mass on occasion when I can,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
yeah, just I go with some coworkers during lunch break and things like that, or early in the morning. Because it's right next where we work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just it's comforting. I like to hear the message, and religion has a lot of universal truths. I don't believe that they're all the same, but uh, different paths for different people. But we have a lot of commonalities within really different religions, but uh, and a lot of truths I think that are spoken in each tradition. So,
Yeah, and I think it's a really special thing that you have where you have like an openness to uh going to mass now, even though you are you're more or less established within your Buddhist path, but you're like, I can appreciate the universal truths that various faiths might have and share with each other.
yeah,
And there might be some comfort or maybe some nostalgia that comes up when you like bringing you back to your high school days, or that kind of curiosity and that time in your life when you were thinking about converting. You can like have those kind of experiences where you can
yeah,
go attend mass and see it again. And there is, I went to Catholic high school as well, and it was pretty light though. It was pretty light on Catholicism, but I will say that there's something really amazing about having a Catholic education in high school and in general, because they do have religion classes like that. Like
mm,
they're so, some, I don't know, I can't speak for every Catholic high school, but like some of the ones that I'm familiar with really are about kind of making sure that you're introduced to other faith traditions.
yeah,
And I really appreciated that a lot because I didn't go to a Catholic college, but I ended up majoring in religion because that kind of just it sparked so much in me. It made me want to kind of investigate more and learn more
yeah.
about you learn about so much about a culture or a country or whatever it is through their religious traditions. So that's really special that you get to revisit that in your own way and connect with it and continue connecting with it. And then, so what at what point did you found that Buddhism was speaking to you more in high school? Again, you're kind of wanting to get more in touch with your roots in that. At what point did you find yourself kind of drifting more towards Shingon?
Oh, that came much later in life. So after, in high school, I started attending services at Nishihonganji a little bit more. I started going to Zen practice. I was part of the Buddhist Catholic Dialogue uh, in LA. One of my teachers was working on his master's in theology and ecumenicism, I think. Just looking at the different traditions, he went to LMU, and was he my religion? I think I had him for religion, but I didn't have him for world religions. I had him for like oh, Christian morality or ethic. I don't remember, but I just remember him as a person. He was wonderful. He took me and another student. He was like, "Look, I need your parents to sign these permission slips. You're coming with me to this Buddhist Catholic dialogue. I want you guys to participate and just if you need to speak up, speak up. And if you have nothing to say, that's okay. Just observe." I go to it every month because his advisor was one of the founding members, I believe. And so yeah, it was then where I felt really inspired to like really jump in to Buddhism more and explore more different traditions. So I went to the International Buddhist Meditation Center in Koreatown, and I started going to the Zen Center of Los Angeles. Um, and I think went to like one of the Tibetan centers. Uh, I think it was a Shambhala center that I went to in LA to check out their meditation. And then all of a sudden I found myself in college and I was like, well, what do I do here? And luckily I went to UC Davis, and the Sacramento Betsuin is not too far. So I started going there with a couple of friends later on, like into my junior and senior year of college. I started going there um, more regularly. And then I moved to Japan, and I did the JET program for 2 years, teaching English in high school, Japanese high schools. And I would go to the Tsukiji Honganji in Tokyo. They have a monthly English service, and I ended up going to Kyoto to do the Chikyō, which is in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. It's like the lay ordination service type of, or well, taking refuge for in the Jodo Shinshu tradition. So you get a Dharma name, and my first Dharma name in the tradition was Hotoku, which means meaning the Dharma, and Toku meaning like the virtue of the three jewels. And so I that was my first Dharma name. After doing a long ceremony, or not too long, it was actually pretty short comparatively to the ceremonies that I'm doing. But yeah, it was in Kyoto at the headquarters and at Nishihonganji, and it was a lovely ceremony. The head of um, Nishihonganji comes out and he performs like uh you know cutting your hair. Not really, they turn the blade the other way and then they fake cut your hair 3 times like in a regular tokudo ceremony. um and they confer a Buddhist name on you after doing a service and whatnot, and then you go to morning service after. So it was a lovely service. I enjoyed it. It was good for what it was, and I felt more Buddhist, I think, at that time. And when I was leaving Japan, or before I was leaving Japan, I think all the people at Tsukiji Honganji were all ministers basically, and they'd be like, "So, are you gonna be ordaining?" And I was like, haven't thought of that yet, but no, that wasn't the plan." And told me, "Well, maybe you should consider it because you're very devout. You come here every month. We see you all the time. Um, this one." sensei there, he was like, yeah, even my daughter, or his, I think it was his stepdaughter that lived in Poland that came to Japan every now and then, or half the year, was like, yeah, even she ordained, and she was right there. She's like, yeah, I'm ordained too, and I was like, oh, this is not helping.
Wow.
So that kind of gave me the, oh, maybe I really should, because it'll allow me to study more. I'll learn more of the Dharma. I'll be able to chant more. But I think at the end of the day, I felt that Nishi was Nishi Honganji was a great tradition, but it wasn't the right fit for me, I guess. Just because I wanted to do more active practice besides just chanting, you know, um, and hearing the Dharma. I wanted to have a practice, and I wanted to have a practice that was more than just Nembutsu. And if I think about it, there's a lot more to Nishi practice, because their practice is being a good person in everyday life, expressing the Dharma in all their actions. But I didn't see it at the time. um, it didn't come to me much later in my own practice, where I started noticing, someone asked me, how do you practice? And I said, just by saying thank you to everyone, and greeting them every day. That's what I'm going to focus on right now, and trying to make their day a little bit better by me acknowledging their presence. And so um, that's what I started out with for like a year, and then I expanded my practice to other things.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, I understand that impulse where you're just like, well, I want to be a little bit more, active in the sense of
Yeah,
it being a little bit more bodily, or a little bit more
yeah,
uh I guess like regimented isn't necessarily a word, but just like a little bit more like uh variety of physical engagement maybe. But
exactly.
I understand it. But then again, I do appreciate your, hindsight on it, where it's like, well, actually, the if you really wanted to dive down deep, you can find like an abundance, or like a lot more variety within Jodo Shinshu that you had, previously not really seen.
Yeah,
Uh, and then you found yourself back in LA from Japan, and were
back in
you
LA, and I was checking out the Zen Center of LA, or of Los Angeles again, going to their what was it? I was doing a lot of the Zazen meditation. I did all the classes there. I went as far as to I joined as a member for a little while, and then I went as far as to take the Jukai classes that they had, and I started sewing our rakusu, when the for lay people. And they said, after you finish it and after you do your bows, you can formally do Jukai at the Zen Center. And I ended up not doing it, because that was around the time that I found Koyasan, uh, Beikoku Betsuin in Little Tokyo. And one of my friends had told me, the one that I used to go to the temple in Sacramento with, her family was Shingon Buddhist. And she was like, she would tell me kind of about it, a little bit about it. And she's like, it's kind of like Tibetan Buddhism, but it's just really deep and esoteric, and it's just too much for me. I don't understand. So that's why I go to Jodo Shinshu service, and it's so much easier, and I can understand and digest that. Her family is all from Japan. She was born in San Francisco, but her parents were born in Japan. She grew up here, and she was like, you should probably check it out, since you're really into Tibetan Buddhism, and you've studied a lot of Buddhism. It might be something that might be of interest to you. And I didn't even know that there was a Shingon temple in Little Tokyo, and I lived all my life in LA. So except for when I went to UC Davis, but yeah, had no clue. I had been by that temple probably hundreds of times, because I was in Little Tokyo a lot on the weekends with my mom, and when we would buy manju and things like that, and go to Nishi. We would always stop by and park right around the corner from there. Just did not know it existed. And one day I went to their service, or I went to a rummage sale, and I asked them, when do you guys have service? Because I didn't even know this place existed. I'd love to check it out. And they said, well, we have, service on Sunday, come back again. And so I went back to service the following Sunday to just to check it out. And something just spoke to me. And, I read their website, I was doing all this research. And I remembered that the bishop of that temple at the time, his stories really inspired me. And that's what was like, something in me was like, you know what, maybe you do want to practice more and become a monk and train under this person. And that didn't end up happening, but we went through a very uh, the temple had a lot of turmoil around that time. That bishop ended up quitting and leaving the organization and starting up his own temples in the South Bay, just because there were just differences between him and the boarding cabinet there. Um, he didn't feel like he had enough support. The boarding cabinet just didn't feel, well, when it's time to go, it's time to go. When it's time to move on, it's time to move on. I can't really speak because I wasn't on the boarding cabinet then. Uh, I just felt, I know how I felt about the situation. It was very awkward for me because he was someone that I looked up to and I was so inspired. And I had changed my whole trajectory on Buddhism. And I was like, this is the path for me. Based on his stories and his Dharma talks and whatnot. So he was really good at, providing instruction, providing Dharma talks, meditation instruction. He was really good at it. And it was really just unfortunate that things didn't work out.
Yeah.
Uh, so at that point was when I figured like I wanna practice Buddhism. I want to possibly be a monk. And you know, when I joined this temple, things just happened like things I was pushed in a direction. I think I was pushed on the path by various forces. Um, I think my second time going there, they were having Goeka practice, and my now one of my really good friends at the temple, she had invited me after morning service. She's like, "Oh, do you want to stay for Goeka practice?" I said, "I have no clue what you just said, but so tell me about it." And she goes, "Well, it's like our choir here, and we sing hymns." And I said, "Oh," she goes, "Do you like to sing?" I said, and I didn't want to lie because I love singing. I won't say that I'm a really good singer, but I love to go to karaoke and I love to sing with friends, and I love singing. So I said, sure, let's try it out. And when I went there, I was a new person, and I will tell you that the attitude of a lot of Japanese communities and whatnot are, they're very wary of outsiders and strangers at first, and it takes them a while to warm up to outsiders. So I kind of had a feeling of the first class was okay. The head minister there, he was teaching us, and she just got me everything. She was very inviting. Um, she was probably thinking, oh, a younger person, we need to, cash out on this opportunity to make sure that he joins as a member. And I think that was one of the reasons why. Um, so I joined their practice that day, and I said, well, I guess I'll try it out because they only had a few members. And this temple, it just looked like it needed a lot of help. And one of the reasons why I didn't go back to Nishi is because it's a huge temple, a huge community, and I my family has ties to the community, but um my mother's aunt and uncle were, strong members. They used to go all the time, but they stopped going as they got older. And their children know a lot of people in the community too. And I was like, well, do I really want to go into a community where I feel like I'll get spied on, or, little tidbits may get back to my family without me telling them first? And I was like, I don't think I want to deal with that type of community, because the Japanese American community is talked a lot. There's a lot of, you know, I just didn't want to be involved with that. So I was like, let me try a different community. And that's why I went to Zen Center of Los Angeles. And that's why ultimately why I ended up at Koyasan Buddhist Temple, because it just felt more homey to me. I liked being around a Japanese American based community, even though our membership is not all Japanese American. But having that connection to that location and the history and everything, I just really liked that aspect of it, um, being tied to that type of a community.
Yeah. And have your own kind of sense of privacy. Like you get to kind of walk your path kind of like with like a little bit less less ears and eyes on you,
Exactly.
less chatter, kind of
Yeah.
like it's like I'm gonna do my thing and I'm gonna explore my thing, and then not everyone has to know how, how I
How I do that.
stumble. Yeah, yeah, how I do
Exactly.
that thing. That's great. I mean, I'm really glad that you found this space, and then kind of your love of singing helped kind of like drew you in a little bit more, like kind of like kind of an outlet for you to participate
Yeah.
more at Koyasan. And then I was curious with the former minister, because this sounds like they're still active in the South Bay, San Francisco Bay area.
Oh
Did,
no.
oh, sorry, South Bay.
So he okay, so he ended up quitting from our temple. He moved from our temple to the South Bay. Sorry, we have a South Bay in Los Angeles as
Oh,
well.
got it. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
um, so it's like the Torrance Gardena area. That's where there's a big Japanese community down there. Um, there's not so many in Little Tokyo anymore. So he was there for a few years. His uncle passed away in Hiroshima, and so he ended up having to take over his family temple. And so he went back to Japan um, several years ago to just take care of his family temple. So he's no longer here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel moved to reach out, stay in touch? Have you stayed in touch?
Oh yeah, I'm still so his son. I'm friends with his son.
Oh, great. Yeah.
His son is my taiko teacher, or one of my taiko teachers, and a close friend of mine. Um, and when I was in Japan, I think last June, he was also on Mount Koya when I went for my Jukai ceremony there, the priest Jukai ceremony. It's like the one where you take the 250 bows and you do thousands and thousands of of full prostrations.
Wow. Wait, I wanted to ask you about your experience on Mount Koya, because you've lived in Japan, so going back there, I think it was 2023, right? That's when you did your Jukai?
I did Jukai in 2023. I did
2023.
Jukai then, and then I also did the Gonkyoshi program. Uh, month after month. I did Jukai in June and then Gonkyoshi in July. I had to go back and forth. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. But it wasn't your first time going to Japan, and if anything, you kind of got to refamiliarize yourself, I guess, with being there. And what was it like going to Mount Koya and kind of touching this foundational spot, like where the basis of your temple in Little Tokyo is. You got to go to a deeply important fundamental part of that the Shingon.
Yeah. So, just to kind of back up a little bit and talk about my monk story, I didn't think I was going to become a monk. In 2021 is when that happened. In 2020 was when the current bishop came. And I want to say in 2016 or 17, one of my friends had ordained under the previous bishop at Koyasan. And I was there for his ceremony. I wanted to support him in 2015 or 16. He ordained then, and I wanted to support him in his path of practice. I didn't think that bishop at the time would take on students, and so after the first bishop that I knew and thought I wanted to study under had left the temple. I figured, okay, this is probably not going to happen ever, because it's very rare to even experience Shingon Buddhism, and to ordain in the tradition is even more rare, because we're just like all the other traditions, we're at a shortage of priests right now. So I just, it wasn't even an idea in my mind. It wasn't until the next bishop came and he asked me to ordain because we had another monk coming from Japan. Things, long story short, things just didn't work out, and even after we got his visa paperwork all through, like during the pandemic and everything, he was supposed to start. He ended up not starting, and we were getting another candidate on board during the pandemic, and we figured, well, we're gonna have to front a lot of money because we're gonna have to do all this emergency paperwork, get him a visa. He won't even be a trainee because they shut down the border, so he would have to come here on not a temporary tourist visa or anything like that, or the ESTA program where it's a visa waiver program for Japanese citizens. And we're just gonna have to hope that he works out. Things ended up not working out with that person. So that was when my teacher and the current bishop was like, so I'm developing a program for, growing monks here in America. And so I told him immediately, look, I'm not interested. I don't want to be a monk. And he goes, I'm not asking you to be like, he's like, just hear me out. I said, okay, I will listen. I'm sorry. And so he's like, there's two paths for monkhood. Like you can go, there's the Kyōkai and Gonkyoshi program. That's what I'm developing right now. I'm not talking about the full-fledged monk where you do your 100 days of practice and you go through hell at Mount Koya and all that. He's like, you don't have to be there for a year. You will do your training here in America with me and with a couple of other priests that we, within North America. And I said, okay, that I could probably do. But I'm still not committing to that. I need more information. So he's explaining it to me more. And he's like, and I need help with this. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, I know that you used to work at UCLA and you know how to deal with like creating schools and whatnot and programs and you were a teacher, so can't you help with? And I said, no, I can't. Like it's too much like outside of my capacity right now. Because we're going through a pandemic, and I was like, well, it'll give me something to do. So I started helping him. He partnered up with some people in your Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, to help him and assist him with developing this program, and a couple of people at headquarters that were very in support of starting this program here in America. So we were the test pilot, and he ordained us in 2021. And I almost didn't ordain because my grandma had passed away that Saturday before our ordination, which was on Sunday. And it was very different. Like I was just going through so many things, and I think I went to meet with my family that morning, and we spent a couple of hours in the park because it's still COVID, and you weren't supposed to gather, so we did an outdoor gathering at the park. A lot of family was coming in from out of town because they went to go visit my grandma, and so we had picnic. And I said, okay, guys, I gotta go to the temple because I'm getting ordained tomorrow. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah. I wanted to tell everyone when we were in person, I'm ordaining in this tradition. They're like, we didn't know that you were gonna do that. And they were like, they had all these questions. It's like, but we'll talk again. Don't worry. Like, and so they're like, okay. Good luck, have fun. They gave me their best wishes. Then I went to the temple. My aunt texted me that she just went to go. I think they went to see her, and she had just passed away. She got to see her before she passed away, I think, because later in the day is when they texted saying that she had passed away. And so I was at the temple, and I was like trying on the robes and everything for the first time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, can I go through with this? I have to like everything. I used to have really long hair, curly hair, and I was like, I don't know if I can deal with all this big change in my life while I'm going through this loss, like this huge loss. And we couldn't have a funeral yet because of COVID protocols and everything. So it was just, I was in limbo, and I was like, well, you know what? we can't have anyone at our ordination ceremony. At least I know that she will be with me tomorrow. Like in spirit, she will be there with me. She will be there to support me. And that's probably why this timing happened. She knew that I needed someone there, and she will be there for me. And she'll be my person in spirit at my ceremony. And so that's how I took it as my sign. I told a couple people in my group, hey, my grandma just passed away today. So it just be patient with me. Like, um, so everyone was concerned. They're like, oh my gosh, if Brandon isn't here, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do the ceremony. Like, because a lot of it is in Japanese, and I think I was the only Japanese speaker in the group that was being ordained that day. So logistically, it was not going to be very helpful. Um, but things went off. I ordained. That all happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, that is that's it's so hard. I mean, here you are trying to do something where you're deepening a commitment, you're doing something for yourself, and then the just the timing of it is so intense, and there's loss, and then there's family gathering, and then you have to go and you have to remove yourself from that to go do something that you like for yourself, and then it's just
Yeah.
like it's so complicated and so heavy.
Yeah.
Uh, and and yet, I do appreciate how you framed it for yourself where, you know, no one could have been there anyway. And by the passing by the passing of your grandmother happening, like you were the spirit element was able to come, and there's this like feeling of like support that you could kind of draw from um with with them being there with you and walking this important path, this important step with you. So yeah, and but yeah, there's this like thing where you're probably distracted, and yet you have to be on your toes, right? Because you're the person that has the best facility in Japanese, so it's like it kind
Yeah.
of relies on you. You're like a crucial element to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow, and then you are ordained in Los Angeles, and then the pandemic being the pandemic, you couldn't really travel a whole lot. I'm sure, so things were delayed for you to go to Mount Koya. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I think they did end up doing the program in 2022. Just the first one, just the Kyokai Kyoshi program. I think in 2021 they did it, and in 2022 they did it again. But in 2021, I think they did Gonkyoshi, Kyokai Kyoshi, and Gonkyoshi. In 2022, they only did Kyokai Kyoshi, and that was when we found out that they were only going to be doing Gonkyoshi every 2 years because they may be getting rid of the program. Um, so it just I think there's not as much interest in doing this, but I think there's a lot of need for it. Just like Johnny probably explained that this whole program developed around World War II when a lot of the men had to go to war. So there was no one to take care of the temple. So a lot of the wives ended up having to do this program in order as like a band-aid basically to kind of fill that gap. So that they
Yeah.
could still do memorial services, still provide blessings and pastoral care to the congregation with some kind of authority. And it wasn't just the temple wives. A lot of the times it was like the daughters and the sons that would also get involved. Maybe not the first son, because the first sons would take the full path of ordination and go through all the steps. But a lot of the times the second sons and other children would help at the temple and in that. So,
Would you want to go further in your ordination than the Gonkyoshi? Was that right? Did I say that right?
yeah,
Uh,
going to yeah.
Gonkyoshi. Would you want to deepen further, do a more, I guess, complete ordination process?
I'm just a little too old for that right now, I think. It's practice is really grueling. Like I barely served actually like 3 or 4 days on Mount Koya in June and July. Like my 3 4 day stints over there. It was just really tough. I could have done more, I think. To be honest, I could probably do it. I just don't have the time right now to take off work. And again, I maybe in retirement I could think about it, but having to sit that long, it's just practicing rituals that take 3 to 4 hours 3 times a day, and you get like 4 hours of sleep. It's not ideal.
No, no, no.
Especially as you age. And then having to sit seiza too. In Japan, they're really strict about having to sit seiza. And when I went for the Jukai program, I remember them telling me, or telling everyone, not just me, um, if you plan to come back and receive Dempo Kanjo, which is the Abhisheka ceremony for fully ordained acharyas, or ajaris as they say in Japanese, you will have to sit seiza the whole time. And when I went for the Jukai ceremony, I think there were about, let's say like 150 or 160 people that attended because they had not done Jukai in several years, especially for foreigners. There are a lot of people from China, Malaysia, Taiwan that came for this. Like more than half were from China, I would say. And all the foreigners get grouped together. So I was in a group with a bunch of Chinese speaking people from, say, Malaysia and China. And it was a little difficult because my Chinese is very limited. I have taken maybe a year and a half of college level Chinese. And I was in there and I was talking to them, and thankfully two of them were proficient in English, but the others didn't know English at all. And the person that was assigned to our room was a Chinese speaker, and I just had to tell him, hey, I'm not Chinese. You're gonna have to tell me in Japanese. I can understand Japanese. That's the language that I can do. So he was giving all the instructions in Chinese. I said, I don't understand what you're saying at all. So please.
Wow.
And so he switched to Japanese for me. But it was tough because I didn't know what was going on. And my teacher did not prepare me for anything. I didn't even know if I packed everything correctly. Like I got there, but you know what? The monks that were, because you don't stay at that temple, you stay at one of the local temples in the area, and you have to hike in the mountains. Like it's ridiculous. It's up a mountain, through the stream, like over a stream, and then up another mountain to get to this training facility. And it takes about 20-30 minutes to get there. And you have to be there. I think we had to be there like 7 o'clock the first morning. So thankfully there were two nuns that were staying at the same temple lodging that I was at. And I got there pretty late because I think I had come from Tokyo or something. I don't remember. Oh yeah. No, I came from Kyoto, and I was leaving my cousins in Kyoto because my cousins came on a trip to Japan with me the first time. And I said, do you guys want to go this time? Because it'll coincide with this ceremony that I have to do. And they're like, cool, can we watch? I was like, no, you can't watch. Like, it's only for monks. They're like, oh. But I was like, but you can come like later on and see me and hang out. We can hang out. I can show you around Koyasan. And I'm like, okay, we'll do it. And so I went ahead of them a day before they got there. And yeah, it was just, you hike in the mountains and you get to the training facility early in the morning. And these two women, that first night that I got there, they're like, oh yeah, we're going, so you can join us tomorrow. Like, we'll see you at 6 o'clock. Okay, I will be there at 6 o'clock. We'll have breakfast for 15 minutes and we'll head out. So we had breakfast early in the morning at 6 o'clock. I was so lucky because most temple stays don't accommodate outside of what their schedule is. And it kind of puts a burden on their kitchen staff because they have to prepare extra meals for you, like just for you. And they had to keep the bath open for me, and they prepared my dinner the night before. So it was wonderful. And I stayed at this temple that a lot of my monk friends know people there, and that they know the resident minister there. So when they knew that I was from LA, they're like, oh, do you know these people? Do you know these? I was like, yeah, these are my friends. And they're like, oh, okay, let me call them, So they would call my friends in other parts of Japan and say, hey, did you know Brandon's here? Da, 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 da. They're like, oh yeah, he's here. Da, da, da. He told us that he was doing this. So please just give him our best and whatnot. And so the next morning, I didn't know it was gonna rain. I didn't know that I needed rain boots or anything like that. I was not prepared at all. And I didn't even have an umbrella or anything. And so he's like, you will need an umbrella. Here, take this, take this. Like they were giving me everything. They said, don't worry about your suitcases. Just come back after you finish your first day. It'll be really difficult. We'll see you when you get back, and then we'll help you like move to your next location. And they told me, I'm so sorry that you can't stay here the whole time, but I said, don't worry about it. I've got family and we're all staying at the other location. I saw that you could accommodate me only, but not them. So don't even worry about it. Um, but yes, they were so nice and they were very accommodating of my schedule and everything. So um, I felt very supported there and at all the temples. And it's funny because anytime I go to Mount Koya, I feel like it's going to get back to all my friends in Japan because they all have spies.
That's fascinating, like because you have all these eyes and ears on you as you kind of explore different sanghas in Los Angeles, and then you go to Mount Koya and you have all these people that are kind of like looking
Even
after you,
more.
like is that it's a little network of everything. But they also give you umbrellas and they give you
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's pretty cool, and well, gosh, yeah, there's something interesting about you not being prepared at all before you left, and then a lot of people showing up to make sure that you are able to get to the thing on time and get to and get there safely and dressed and fed and all that.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's good that you like when you arrive, the plans like people kind of to take a break to make sure that you are all right. So that's a really amazing kind of network that you're able to plug into, whether you know you're going to do it or not. Whether the network will do what it's going to do.
yeah.
And then I was seeing, by the way, on I know like some of your Instagram, you post some of your Ikebana. Is that right? The
Oh
Ikebana.
yeah,
Yeah,
Ikebana. Yeah.
Ikebana. Is that something that you an interest that you developed while you were living in Japan, or is that something that you continue to do still?
Yeah. I I didn't start doing Ikebana until after I moved back to the States. Oh, I did not take advantage of anything cultural in Japan when I was living there because I was just there for, the good food and the friendships that I had, like from college that, everyone that moved back to Japan after college and whatnot. I was able to keep in touch with them and hang out with them. And then the friendships that I made through the JET program. Um, I did do a homestay, but I didn't do anything like where I learned arts or culture in Japan. A lot of it happened back when I moved, back to LA. Um, I started Ikebana because after my grandfather passed away, I was like, you know what, my mom's gonna want to bring flowers, so I should learn how to do flower arranging. And I might as well learn Ikebana because they teach it at. I was working at UCLA at the time, or UCLA Extension, and as an employee, you get a free class, one for half off, and then a weekend class for free. And so I was like, well, I could do a weekend class, or a free class in Ikebana. And so I started taking free classes and I met my wonderful teacher, Kyoko Kasarjian. Um, she was like, yeah, you should do it. Da, da, da. And she was very encouraging, not just her, but she had a lot of senior students that were also, at the teacher level. Um, and since day one, all of them were like, oh yeah, you should, study with us. You should become a teacher. And she was like, for some reason, she goes, so, tell me more about yourself. And so she found out that I was half Japanese, and she would tell everyone, yeah, this is Brandon. He's my student, da, 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 and his mother's Japanese. So, that would always be her introduction for me. And she would be so proud of me. It was just great. She was like an older lady, like my grandma, kind of. And she's just really proud of all of her students, you know, because she's taught us so well and she's got such a wonderful eye. And there'll be things where, as we advance in our levels of Ikebana. Like I became a teacher. I want to say 2022. I think I got my no 2021. I got my certificate, my teaching certificate, my first teaching certificate in Ikebana. Doesn't mean that I can teach, but she has to give her blessing
Oh,
before that happens, and I can only teach a certain amount in the first book. You have to progress a lot more in order to teach uh,
yeah.
beyond. But her goal was for me to become a teacher, so I did it while she was still lucid. She's got really bad dementia right now, and so she doesn't remember a lot of people, like a lot of the students. I just visited her a couple weekends ago, and it was a lovely visit, but she got real tired real quick. She's also going through stage 4 cancer. It's just a lot of things that are very difficult for her, but she's just in a place where she can be happy and enjoy. And I'm glad that she's got the dementia because she doesn't realize the deterioration of her health right now and why she needs the assistance and like in care assistance at home and whatnot. So uh,
Wow.
I think
Wow.
it's just a blessing in disguise. I've dealt with my grandpa had dementia and Alzheimer's when he was passing, and his sisters both have it, and it's just rough. But it can also be a blessing in that they don't realize how bad certain things are, and they just see, the short-term memory goes and the long-term memory goes, but sometimes it's better that they don't have that short-term memory because they don't remember that they just fell, or so
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I, I have two things, but like one is that again, like I really feel for you because it feels like you have a lot of experiences, a lot of people that are close to you, a lot of people that you feel connected to that are right now or have had some terminal illnesses or otherwise like really uh detrimental illnesses, and they're they're really hard to hold and to watch happen. So I'm really sorry that you have so much uh, happening in that in various aspects of your life. And on the other side, I want to say that there's something another through line through our conversation is that people really believe in you quite a bit, and there's a lot of people that are like, you need to teach, like you need to do this and you need to do that, and like for the most part, when you've been listening to it, you go on such wonderful adventures, and it feels like you've been helping a lot of people as a result. I mean, like you have people in your family that are saying, like, uh, you're good at helping us process this grief, and through your meditation skills, this is something that you ought to pursue. And then, I'm hearing all these things of like, the more recent or current bishop is like, think about being a monk. You're like, no, and you're like, wait, just wait a second,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and you have the Ikebana teacher who's believing in you. It's just really cool to have these people that are really believing in your talents. And then another talent that I'm noticing is that, and I think it's you that's making all this. You're really good at baking bread. You're really good at it. Like
Oh.
yeah, I mean, it looks amazing, and you're doing it all before pandemic time, so you get full credit. Not that I'm the guy that gives credit, but because I think I've baked like a very few things. But you have this like etching thing. You make the sourdough look so nice, and you do like the half etching. It's just amazing. So you have like a visual, like so you have like a vocal talent. You like to pursue that as a creative outlet. And then I think you've done some shodo, some calligraphy as well. But you have an eye. You have an eye for detail. You have an eye for all sorts of things. Like, have you always been kind of a visual person or any of that?
It's really funny that you say that because I really do not feel like I'm an artistic type of a person. And a lot of my friends laugh at me whenever I say that because they're like, but you do so much. Like, and it's like, yeah, but it's all like crafty type of things. And they're like, yeah, but you can do anything that we throw at you, you just do it. And it's like, I try. Um, yeah, I still don't feel like I am an artist in in the traditional sense, like, well, like I guess in the Western sense, like, well, I got trained, I want to draw. Like in Ikebana class, there's a couple of teachers that I've had where they ask you to sketch out your arrangement, and I just I freeze up and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And this one teacher's like, no, just draw a basic, and he's there drawing for me. He's like, yeah, why not something like this? And I was like, how did you just do that in 5 seconds? That would take me an hour. And so I was like, okay, I can do shapes. Like I can do a cube, I can do a rectangular cube. Sure, that's my base. I can,
Nice.
because we had to work on a sketching. This one time we were working with bamboo, and he does large arrangements with bamboo. He's just known for his large arrangements, and bamboo is what his medium is. So he brought bamboo to class. I had a very small vase, and I was like, well, in order for me to really do this, I need to go outside my vase. So I had to build a structure that was partially in the vase, partially outside of the vase, because I brought very small vases that day. I was like, this is the best one that will work. And he's like, okay, draw it though. And I was like, I can't draw. He's like, yes, you can, just do it. And so I did a quick rendering, and he had to approve it before you could, because we had to saw everything, we had to drill and nail things. It's not the Ikebana school that I belong to is the most modern. Um, it's almost 100 years old. It's called the Sogetsu School. Um, and they're just known for their very modern arrangements. Sometimes we don't even use flowers. Like I have a couple of arrangements where it was all just unconventional materials like plastic and metal and chicken wire and yeah, and
You
we still call it Ikebana.
Wow. I mean, it's so funny that you say that you don't necessarily recognize yourself as an artist. I mean, the more that you say things, the more I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely an artist. You're like definitely an artist. People just hand you things, and you're like, oh, I guess I could just make this, and then it's a thing, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's incredible, and you exercise it too, which is so cool. And I'm glad that you. I mean, what a cool way of applying a centuries old art form that typically deals with flower arranging, and then you bring it into chicken wire and you bring it into unconventional
Yeah.
that kind of expands what's possible in a really cool way. No, I'm really impressed. And so like and even too like when it comes to the baking stuff, I mean, again, I don't know a whole lot about baking, but I do know that you're kind of interacting with your environment, you're interacting with temperature and all sorts of and yeast and bacteria and things like that. And so you're growing something, and then you still manage to allow the form to take shape, and it always looks so great. So I really appreciate the way that you attack that. Is food important for you, like in a
Oh yeah.
practice way too? Yeah, or
Yeah. Um, well, just because I love eating and I love food, and things that you things that I've eaten that I've liked, I'm like, I just naturally start to think I need to learn how to make this. Um, when I was in, I guess growing up, I have a set of cousins that were really independent. Like they went off to boarding school in junior high, and they just had things like, I just feel like their mother was so amazing. Like she would cook from scratch, like all these different things, and a lot of things I didn't eat. Like I don't like. I'm lactose intolerant. I don't like cheese. She would make a lot of things that had cheese in it, but you know what? For her, because she put so much time and effort into it, I would eat it because she made it. And her food was just amazing. My mom cooked. She thinks that I cook a lot better than her, but it's because she became out of practice for a little while. She took a break from cooking for a little while when she got sick. But I think that was when she got sick was when I was like, I need to learn how to cook so like we can eat good food and we're not just eating out every time. But it was like kind of too late, and I was like, well, let me just dedicate my time to like learning a little bit more. And in high school, I just started learning to cook, like summer breaks and things like that. When I wasn't in summer school, I usually didn't take summer school. I was like, well, let me just break out a recipe book. Let me learn how to cook something for my parents while they're away, and so that's what I did. Or like cooking lunch and things like that. That's what I did. And then going to college, I became a vegetarian, I think my senior year of high school, and I was vegetarian during college. So I was like, well, I need to learn how to cook vegetarian food. So I started doing that. And when I moved to Japan, I decided I can't be vegetarian anymore because it's just not convenient for life, like living in Japan, because you have to explain and then I'll have to make exceptions. And I know I'll make more exceptions and I will feel very bad because I'm making people go out of their way for me. And I can't do that when I'm in a different country. Like, and I'm not going to be able to bring my own food to like certain things. So let me just change my mindset and just bite the bullet and start eating meat again. So that's what I did when I moved to Japan. And then I started cooking meat again and expanding my my palate a little bit more. So yeah, I think I was very ready for the pandemic. It's like I already had all my hobbies. The bread making, when there was no bread in the stores, I was like, I'm ready for this. I already have several pounds of flour in my house. I can cook for me and my roommate for bread. And when meat didn't look so great in the market, I was like, well, I know how to cook vegetarian. I've got a lot of dried beans at home. I can and when I was in Japan, I learned how to cook Indian food because the first time I went to Japan in 2002, I went for an internship in the summer, and I was vegetarian at the time. And there were some Indian ladies that came to the orphanage that I was interning at, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna make butter chicken and chana masala and some cucumbers and yogurt and some other dishes." And they're like, "Brandon, you want to help us in the kitchen?" I said, "Yes, I do." And so I was there. Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous the amount of food that we had to cook for, I think, 70 people or 80 people in this big industrial kitchen. So I got to learn the basics of Indian cooking from them. And then when I went back, one of my close friends was also vegetarian and Indian. And so I would cook with her every now and then. And I was like, look at what I learned. And she's like, that's not really. so, so she taught me a lot more. And then when I moved back to Japan, um, my friend and I, we would watch this lady on YouTube, and her name was Manjula, and I would watch Manjula's kitchen recipes all the time. And I was like, I want to make some of these. So I started when I was living in Japan, and you know, I would check in with my friend from college saying, "Hey, did I do this right?" She goes, "That looks right to me."
All right. Yeah,
So,
that's good to know that there's like a like the what is it, like a certification from your friends, like, yeah, that's right. That's
yeah, yeah,
wow, that's awesome. Well, this has been so much fun, and thank you for spending for spending time with me today. I had one more question, just
yeah.
as we kind of come to a close, which is just I don't know if there's anything that you'd want to promote. I don't know if there's like a book that you're reading that you'd want to have more people know about, or if there's a project or a foundation that you're working with or on that you'd want people to know about, or if you have any advice to anyone at any point of the Buddhist path, what you'd want to share and what you'd want to know at that point, you know.
Um, I would say for I'll go with advice right now. Um, I would just say just start a practice, make it simple and make it something that you can do consistently. Um, I think that's the biggest key is consistency with your practice. And for me, whatever flavor of Buddhism you choose, just stick with it, even if it's not the right flavor for you. Find a community that you can practice with, because that's also very helpful. when I went, my experiences in Japan was really tough and difficult, but knowing that I had a group of people that were experiencing it right with me made it all the better and made it so much easier and more rewarding at the end of the day. I don't think I could have done those thousands of prostrations in June um, without the 150 other people in the room with me sweating. And it was really difficult because we had not even a full tatami mat. It was like three-quarters of a tatami mat to do our prostrations and stand in front of. So I felt so bad for the person behind me because I kept on stepping on them, like on their kicking them in the head or the shoulder. And the person in front of me, oh, it was so bad because my head was so sweaty and like they had my head mark on their back or on, because as I was bowing, they would be going down and or coming up, and my head would hit the back of their kesa, and I was like, "Oh, this is not good." So I started doing it, going like diagonally. I would bow diagonally, still towards the Buddha statues and whatnot. But my one of my teachers was like, "That's not proper. You need to do it straight." And it's like, he's like, "I understand that you hit the person in front of you, but try to just keep straight and like." Maneuver yourself so that you don't hit the it was really difficult. It was so difficult. That and just persevere, like having to say that he also talked to me about like there were only three three Americans, I think, or four Americans, and he knew three of us. And he came up to me and he's like, Brandon, I know it's really difficult, but you are a representative of the LA Betsuin right now. And, you know, I, I know that you see all the other foreigners sitting Agura style, legs crisscross. Don't sit that way. I need you to sit Seiza. And he's like, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your practice if you don't. So the first day I cheated at the very end of just having to sit there because I saw everyone else was sitting. I was like, well, you know what? If I'm the only one that's doing it in my row, well, what does that even mean? Like, let me just and not kill my legs. And so I sat, you know, quote unquote Indian style, and then my a teacher from a sister temple in the United States that was on that trip just told me, hey, please, you're representing America, so you need to. I was like, but I'm not Japanese. Like, this is not, my body is just not used to this. And it was what I was thinking. I didn't say that. I didn't want to be disrespectful. So I was like, and you're not my teacher. Like, my teacher would totally, actually, I don't know what he would say, but I think he would give me a pass. Like, I'm trying. But I was like, okay, he's the teacher that's here in front of me today, so I need to listen to what he has to say and try my best. So the rest of the time I was sitting Seiza and I saw his student was there sitting Seiza. So I was like, okay, if Taikai can do it, I can do it. So let me just stop and pause and just breathe a little and we will get through this.
Wow. Yeah, so persevering for sure. And it's so funny, like you just have eyes on you all the time. You have like
Oh yeah. Oh
people are,
my
are always
gosh.
just watching you. There's like so you'll be doing anything, and even the people that aren't even authority people for you, or they aren't necessarily even people will just come up and just kind of like either tell on you or they will like give you something to think about. It's just it's it's such a unique and I'm sure at times frustrating experience that you have, but it is really funny that it is kind of a through line for your life is that you just people are looking out for you. How about that? They're
Yeah,
looking
exactly.
at
Exactly.
you and out for you, which is great. Well, Reverend Paris, Brandon, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate you
Thank you
you
very
joining me
much.
today. This is so much fun, and I'm really excited for your next chapter going to Colorado soon for a retreat. I hope that goes well, and I hope that your whole program goes well. You're doing wonderful work. You're going to be helping a lot of people, and I really appreciate you feeling driven to do that and then following through on that. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you very much.